So we want to welcome everyone to take charge of your health. If you have joined on Rumble, this is new today. That's what we may do going forward. So we want to welcome everyone to our Sunday morning health presentation, health program. With our last presentations with Brother John EverBlest, we were discussing the sun, earthing, and other just simple natural methods that God has provided for us for our health. So if you haven't watched our previous presentations, we want to encourage you to do that, because the future presentations or this one will make more sense to you. We want to remind everyone that we have a Q&A segment at the end of each presentation, which goes for about an hour. And well, Brother John answers questions as time allows for about half an hour. And yeah, Brother John, we've been blessed with the presentations so far, and now we are looking forward to finding out more. We are discussing, well, you're sharing it in part 3A, is that right?
Yes, cancer. It's about cancer. Treating cancer Eden's way.
Wonderful. So let's start with a word of prayer, and we'll get into it. Dear Lord, we want to thank you again for Brother John, that he's been able to minister to us, and we'll share with other ministries and others as well. We thank you for his knowledge and experience and his willingness to share. We ask you to help us as well to hear, understand, and be able to take on board all the things that you want us to implement in our lives. Give us wisdom and accepting hearts. We thank you so much for everyone that has joined as well. We thank you and ask all these in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so I will see if I have enabled, or I still need to enable for you to be able to share. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm disabled so far.
You are. Okay. So I'm going to, okay, you should be able to share now.
Okay. And now are you ready for that?
Yeah, we are. Thank you.
Okay. Can you tell right now by looking if anyone's in your audience?
Well, because we are on Rumble, I have to check. Yes, we do have, well, at the moment it says 6, but if I refresh, I haven't refreshed it. So usually, yeah, about 6 people that have joined already. And I think our audience is used to being on YouTube or Rumble.
Yeah.
So
sorry about that. Okay, well, I'm ready then. I'm going to start sharing the screen. You ready?
Yes, thank you.
Here we go. Share the sound. And that, this,
and yeah, we're just, before you start, Brother John, you did mention a few times that you like interaction as well. So if people want to just leave a comment or join Zoom instead, we would appreciate that. Say hi to us and comment or ask your questions, of course, either in Rumble or in Zoom, wherever you are. And yeah, we love the interaction. So thank you.
Good. All right, then I will continue that. That one, go to slideshow from beginning. A swap. Okay, and I'm going to move these. I just discovered that I can move these the camera shots of you and I to my second screen so it doesn't block my presentation. Okay, good. Okay, the topic here. Why is that? Hold on, I got to figure out why that thing's still on there without shutting it off because I had trouble last time. You are screen sharing. Yes, I am. I think I'm going to live with that. Unless I can move it someplace. Captions, reactions, hide panel view, hide floating meeting controls. I'm going to live with it. Last time I couldn't get back once I closed that toolbar there. Can you see that toolbar there on your screens?
No, we can see, well, at the bottom left, we can see something, but on Zoom you can't really, but there is just a little toolbar. Yeah, it's not active anymore. We can just see your screen. It's all good.
Oh, good. It's on mine, so I'll live with it. All right, Eden, God's magnificent outdoor automatic healthcare system. This is part 3A, treating cancer Eden's way. In other words, there's 2 parts to treating cancer Eden's way, and it's still too long. All right. When God placed Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, he surrounded them with nature, side to side, top to bottom. And all of nature was designed to keep them healthy automatically without them even trying. And different parts of nature had different jobs in keeping Adam and Eve healthy. Now, even though this particular lecture this evening is about cancer, this is not a medical presentation. It's a collection and comparison of successful cancer recovery stories using different natural methods, evaluated from an Eden perspective. It's about God's natural law healthcare system and what he has been trying to tell us for generations, that his Eden healthcare system is simple, easy, free, powerful, harmless, beautiful, and automatic. It both prevents and reverses disease. Therefore, we can expect that the most successful treatments of cancer that we're going to talk about will include components of the Eden experience. So, what would a cancer healing lifestyle look like ideally? Well, let's review Adam and Eve's healing lifestyle. The basics. Number 1, live, work, and sleep outdoors. Number 2, live in the beautiful and grand of nature. By the way, that is no small thing. We're going to talk about that one today. Number 3, eat organic plant foods fresh from the garden. Fresh from the garden. Number 4, whole body sunlight and air exposure. Number 5, pure water. Work when it's light, sleep when it's dark. Walk barefooted. Live low stress, live chemical free. Number 11, no electricity, EMFs, or Wi-Fi. Number 12, work with nature, not against it. Rest on the Sabbath. Trust and obey God. Marry someone nice. Don't talk to snakes. In other words, don't parlay with sin like we human beings tend to do. So, a natural cancer treatment would fit somewhere within these hygienic principles of nature. The more of these principles adopted, the more likely cancer would be prevented and or reversed. And just to be clear, this cancer topic takes in the healing agencies addressed in my previous presentations as well. I won't readdress them here, but the sun cure, the fresh air cure, and the healing soil all are part of this healing equation, but I've already covered it in the other presentations. Okay, now this presentation addresses 3 more healing agencies of Eden briefly, and then we will go to the cancer recovery stories and compare them to Eden principles. All right, here's the next Eden healing agency. Beauty. Who'd have figured? I have 4 quotes here. For the chronic invalid, nothing so tends to restore health and happiness as living amid attractive country surroundings. Councils on Health 170. If that institution, Battle Creek Sanitarium, had been situated in the country where it could have been surrounded by gardens and orchards where the sick could have looked upon the beautiful things of nature, the flowers of the field and the fruit trees laden with their rich treasures, how much more good would have been accomplished. Okay. Just a moment here. Okay. As we behold the beautiful and grand in nature, our affections go out after God. While the spirit is awed, the soul is invigorated by coming in contact with the infinite through his works. Life in the open air is good for body and mind. It is God's medicine for the restoration of health. Pure air, good water, sunshine, and the beautiful surroundings of nature. These are his means for restoring the sick to health in natural ways. To the sick, it is worth more than silver or gold to lie in the sunshine or in the shade of the trees. So clearly, there is healing power in the beauty of nature. Trees were also mentioned in a way that caught my attention. So I was asking myself, why would lying under trees be worth more than silver or even gold? Really? Well, since we know that all of nature was designed to keep Adam and Eve healthy effortlessly, and that different parts of nature had different jobs in keeping Adam and Eve healthy, then we must expect that trees also offer something that can prevent and reverse disease, hopefully cancer. So have we ever been given such counsel? Well, yes, we have. There are life-giving properties in the balsam of the pine, in the fragrance of the cedar and the fir, and there are other trees as well. One of those trees was hemlock. There are other trees that are health-promoting. Let no such trees be ruthlessly cut down. Cherish them where they are abundant and plant more where there are but few. Whoa, she's serious. Has this ever been taken seriously, much less noticed? What if God placed those life-giving healing properties into trees to specifically treat diseases such as cancer? What are the odds? From the beginning, God has made provisions for the terrible emergencies of disease, even for our time, especially for our time. So would it be a surprise were we to find scientific evidence of such a thing? Well, it was a huge surprise to me when I found it. Teenagers surrounded by green are less aggressive. Well, that's a good thing, but that's not addressing cancer. No, that's just an entering wedge here. The next slides are about cancer and trees. The following excerpts are from the book, The Healing Code of Nature by Clemens G. Arve, biologist. He had it right. So, of course, the merchants of Pharmakeia had him killed. Over and over and over, this keeps happening. Here's what he said, and it's fascinating. International studies show a strong link between the presence of trees and human health. Renowned scientific journals such as Science and Nature have already published such evidence. Even the view from the hospital window of a tree activates the self-healing powers of patients after operations. I'm kind of overwhelmed by that. Just that alone is magnificent, but it just keeps getting better as we go. The danger of suffering from modern civilization diseases decreases the increasing number of trees around the center of a person's life. According to a Canadian study, The health effect of 10 additional trees, just 10, around the center of life of Toronto city dwellers would correspond to a 7-year makeover. In order to fathom these immensely positive effects on humans, scientists all over the world set out in search of explanations. Among other things, it turned out that trees emit, now here's the good stuff, trees emit chemical words during plant communication, which are molecular coolness from the substance group of terpenes, which carry meaning in the world of plants, similar to the vocabulary of human language. Yeah, I believe that. A few years ago, I would not, but now I do. The more I study God's nature, it is incomprehensibly complex and wonderful. A wheel within a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. All right. Our immune system, which according to recent findings is a communicative sensory system, reacts to these substances, tree terpenes, with a significant increase in defenses and mechanisms protecting against cancer. There it is, folks. But there's more. The fact that these effects are actually due to tree terpenes was often confirmed by scientists in accompanying laboratory experiments. International cancer researchers who otherwise have nothing to do with trees independently found in laboratory experiments that terpenes from trees act against tumor cells, cancer tumor cells. These scientists even underlined the pharmaceutical potential of plant terpenes as highly concentrated chemotherapy drugs in the future treatment of cancer. No, they'll just kill it. They'll make things worse. Our immune system is not strengthened by substances from trees, but is weakened by the separation from these substances in modern life. This guy gets it. Stays in nature do not lead to more immune cells, but bring their number and activity back to a natural level. The advance of civilization diseases is caused not only by environmental toxins that are added, but also by the separation from natural products. Does that sound like God's fingerprints or what? Yes, this is why God intended that Adam and Eve live, work, and sleep outdoors. He intends it for us too. This scientist continues, he says, trees in the forest protect their own terpenes from direct sunlight and thus prevent the substances that are healthy for us from being destroyed by UV radiation. They even retain their own gaseous plant substances so that they cannot escape. They remain most concentrated at exactly the height at which our nose is located. Do the trees mean well for us? This is still a quote from this scientist. The fact that nature offers healing substances against almost every disease leads some of us to the feeling that the natural remedies were formed by plants for us. This guy was not an Adventist. He was actually an evolutionist. But he's speaking like an Adventist. He's speaking like Ellen White. And of course, this is true. Natural remedies were formed by plants for us by God. A loving, merciful, all-knowing God has had this whole thing figured out from the very beginning. We are fearfully and wonderfully made, and God created a healthcare system for us that is equally fearfully and wonderfully made. So the question you might be asking is, how long does all this effect last? All right, here's an excerpt from a research paper that gives us the answer to that question. I may not read it all, I'll just get right to it. The yellow part. Moreover, this effect that we've just been talking about lasted for more than 30 days after the trips to the forest park, suggesting that visiting a forest park once a month would enable individuals to maintain a higher level of natural killer cell activity. Isn't that interesting? You know what that means. If you get cancer, if you're working with cancer patients, if you work at a lifestyle center or a sanitarium, you get your patients out under those trees, pine, cedar, fir, and hemlock trees. Just think what would happen if they were there all the time. All right, moving on. There are life-giving properties in the balsam of the pine, in the fragrance of the cedar and the fir, and there are other trees that are health-promoting. So, is this another long-lost Eden healing principle? Grounding was a lost Eden healing principle, and when it was recently rediscovered, magnificent healing stories have been flooding in ever since. So just think of the flood of magnificent healing stories that we could be generating were we to start placing our cancer patients in these trees. Isn't that magnificent to think about? I suspect that this is yet another counteragent that God is redirecting us to meet the ongoing demonic end-time genocidal weapons formed against us. God has made our healthcare so incredibly simple. He has embedded our healthcare into nature, and I just barely touched the surface in all of these presentations. Eden contained built-in health statutes. His natural law demonstrated, put into practice, and showcased for us all. Clearly, God's commandments and statutes are not grievous. And God tells us what we can expect if we keep his statutes. If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. This is the underlying foundation for all health and healing, including cancer. Healthcare is not about hospitals or doctors or medical insurance or pharmaceuticals or gadgetries or even our man-made therapies. It has nothing to do with mortal man's medical theories, including our own theories. It is this, that we do that which is right in God's sight, that we keep his statutes and trust in the provisions that he has specified for our health and healing. Don't add anything unto it. He has promised to bless these healing agencies as we use them, It's about simple obedience to God, complete surrender to his will. And I'm serious about that complete surrender thing. I have a story to tell. It's my story. Here it is. I was sick for 1.5 years, and I didn't know why. And I kept getting more and more serious symptoms, which made me sicker because I was so afraid of what's going on. Anyway, one of those horrible symptoms was a long-term, continuous, sharp pain in my back on both sides, just slightly above where that man's hands are. Finally, my doctor told me, after we're kind of figuring out what it was, my doctor told me that it was adrenal fatigue from constant fear and anxiety from those mysterious health conditions. Things had gotten so bad, that pain and all those symptoms, that my wife and I finally knelt down to pray together. Now, we've done that many times before, but this time I completely surrendered myself to God unto death. And I said it in so many words. The results be what they may, whether I live or die. I did not want to do this. I didn't feel anything but fear and sinfulness either before or after that prayer. I felt no peace of any kind. Yet when I got up from my prayer, I realized that the long-term adrenal pain had been healed. It was the surrender to God unto death that moved the hand of the Lord to heal. This is truly the foundation of healing. He says, I am the Lord that healeth thee. Now, just so you know, I was already eating exceedingly healthfully according to the natural law, but that alone did not trigger the miraculous healing from God for me. One way or the other, true healing is a spiritual matter. It always involves God. For it is neither herb nor mollifying plaster that restored them to health, but thy word, O Lord, which healeth all things. Isn't that wonderful? We are told that we are to do that which is right in his sight. Yet there are a lot of conflicting ideas of what is right in his sight as far as treating cancer or any disease naturally. So how do we know if a cancer regime is right in God's sight? Well, here are the very simple tests. Has God specified it in words, principle, or demonstration? Is it in harmony with natural law and Eden health principles? And by the way, we're going to judge these upcoming cancer regimes by these principles, so pay attention. Number 3, does it preserve the natural order of things? That's very important. Number 4, is it non-toxic? Number 5, is it simple? Is it free or inexpensive? And number 7, does the regime use God's healing agents as its primary therapy? Okay, now in the context of these tests, we are now going to examine different groups of people who have reversed their cancers without pharmaceuticals using different natural regimes. Now, this is important what I'm about to say. The stories that I tell are the stories that have been placed in my path before I even started this presentation. I did not go looking for them. I don't address surgery or emergency care, just God's general healing principles. We're going to see which natural cancer regimes pass these tests, which ones do that which is right in his sight. And we're going to start with the most famous of all natural cancer recovery regimes, the Gerson therapy, considered to be the gold standard of alternative natural cancer treatments. What did Dr. Gerson do? Okay. The Gerson therapy. Dr. Gerson treated mostly advanced cancer patients. He used no traditional pharmacia, not traditional. It was mostly food, juicing, and coffee enemas. It worked well enough, and he broadcast it so thoroughly that the medical fraternities murdered him with poison. And he knew it. He tested himself. I believe it was arsenic. So he had to be doing something right. He cured hundreds of cases of cancer, tuberculosis, migraines, arthritis, etc., etc. This section is based mostly on his book. Let's take a look at his cancer regime. This part's kind of heavy. Everything else is not, but this one is. Gerson is. Because it's so well ingrained in people. And we're about to find out why and should they be or not. The Gerson therapy. To my surprise, the Gerson therapy was not at all what I thought it was. It is overwhelmingly excessive and complicated. There are numberless restrictions, exceptions, and instructions of if this, then that. It was a giant labyrinth that was ever changing. Nothing was simple. Basically, he ignored God's specified remedies. Those remedies are in the green, and emphasized only mortal man's medical theories and practices in red. Each of the regimes that follow will fit somewhere within these listed agencies. Diets. That WPBF there in green, that means whole plant-based food, or an Eden diet. Gerson used fruits, vegetables, potatoes, some milk. Really? some milk products and grains, but he cut out berries, nuts, pineapples, avocados, and cucumbers. No solid meats. Now, why would he cut out God's healing vegetables and fruits and nuts and berries? Why would he do that? Now, the milk product was the first surprise. That immediately disqualifies the Gerson therapy from being called a whole plant-based diet or vegan. Sunlight. This is what he had to say about sunlight. Exposure to sunshine should be minimized. Now, we here know better than that, don't we? All of Gerson's cancer patients were sensitive to the sun because they were so toxic, just as all of Dr. Rollier's patients were sensitive to the sunlight. But Dr. Rollier simply exposed them to the healing sun very gradually, and that sensitivity soon disappeared. God placed Adam and Eve in a garden with full body exposure to sunlight all day, every day. We were supposed to have as much sunlight as possible, not the least amount possible. It is one of nature's most healing agencies, says Ellen White. Exercise. He says, a cancer patient needs lots of rest. Do not try to do too much exercise or work in the early stages of the program. Well, these were advanced stages. Maybe he had a point there. Maybe. Although other regimes didn't actually reflect that. We'll see. Juicing. Now we're going to get complicated. This is what he prescribed. A glass of fresh juice every hour, and that's fresh juice, must be made at the beginning of that hour. Fresh juice every hour for 13 consecutive hours daily for 2 years. It included 3 glasses of fresh calf liver juice. Yes, folks, you read that right. Calf liver juice. 4 glasses of green vegetable juices, 6 glasses of fruit juice. Then filtered gruel was added to the juices at first because of patient sensitivity. Drinking water was forbidden to allow space for all the juices and soups. Oh, man. Now, because of the extensive juicing of vegetables, and this is a quote from them, a follower of the Gerson eating plan takes in between 17 to 20 pounds of plant foods each day. You've got to be kidding here. Does God require this kind of excess? This is not in any way in harmony with God's natural law or whole plant food diet so far. Even if his juicing was made up of 100% plants, no liver juice, it would still not be whole plant-based foods, juices. How on earth is 20 pounds of produce every day considered sustainable, affordable, or reasonable, or practical? And the time it takes to juice all this, the labor it takes, the energy it takes. This is clearly grievous. But God's health statutes are not grievous, which means so far that the Gerson therapy is not built on Eden or biblical principles at all. Now, just so you know, none of the other cancer regimes below are grievous, yet they work too. Oh, now it gets really worse. Supplements, 50 milligrams, 1 tablet, 6 times a day, potassium compound, 4 teaspoons, 10 times a day. That's a lot, by the way. Linseed oil, and interesting, he found that these following things are carcinogens: hormones, some vitamins, E, A, D, etc., calcium phosphate compositions, and keratin had a carcinogenic effect on his patients. He also found he had no calcium, no magnesium. He used no calcium, no magnesium, no other minerals because they caused cancer to regrow in his patients. That is something we need to remember. It tells you something. It plants the seed of why are we taking supplements? Anyway, the next presentation, 3B, it goes in detail biblically, Ellen White, science, everything, and it's fascinating. All right, now basically Gerson found that many vitamins and mineral supplements cause cancer to regrow in his patients. Now this I can believe. I mean, we cannot mess with God's natural order of things and expect good results. If you leave with this presentation remembering only one thing, this would be what I'd hope you remember. We cannot mess with God's natural order of things and expect good results. That means we have to study what his natural order of things are, which means we have to go back to Eden. Medications. These weren't exactly medications. They weren't exactly supplements. They were kind of in between. But here it is. Dried powdered bile from young animals. Seriously? 3 cc's of fresh crude calf liver extract combined with 100 micrograms of B12 daily injections. You're injecting calf liver extract into your bodies? Digestive enzymes from pigs, 3 tablets 4 times a day, animal thyroid glands, pigs usually, and iodine, etc., etc. There's nothing vegan about Gerson's program. Some of it is literally unclean, defiling, and prohibited by God. Yet this is where the idea of juicing came from, modern day. Enemas, coffee, castor oil, they overlap here. He says, frequent enemas day and night. On average, we give coffee enemas every 4 hours, day and night. And even more frequently against severe pain, nausea, general nervous tension, and depression. Enemas also help against spasms, precordial pain, and difficulties resulting from the sudden withdrawal of all intoxicating sedation. He continues. On the average, every other day, we give 2 tablespoons of castor oil by mouth, followed by a cup of black coffee, and 5 hours later, a castor oil enema, in addition to the coffee enemas, without interrupting their frequency. Difficult as this may be to believe, experience has proved that frequent enemas completely eliminate the need for sedation. This is still a quote. Some patients take enemas every 2 hours, or even more frequently during the first days of the treatment. Oh, I bet you this has triggered all sorts of emotional thoughts in you by hearing that. Surely God has provided a better way than all of this. The other cancer regimes in this presentation treated cancer successfully and naturally without enemas. The very first health vision, this means something. The very first health vision given to Ellen White was in the year 1888. It was a simple warning against 3 things only: tea, tobacco, and coffee. That was God's first warning to planet Earth about coffee. And I mean, it's about coffee. Does God's counsel not apply here if we put it into our bodies via an enema? Folks, this is entirely mortal man's medical theories. But some say, and there's proof, they got proof here in this slide, that it works, right? But to which I would respond, there will always be a price to pay for messing with the natural order of things. God has provided a better way. We are to trust him and his specified provisions. We have an arrangement with him, and we, Seventh-day Adventists, are to be represented in our world by the advanced principles of health reform which God has given us. Are we to be represented by drinking coffee through a hose up the bum? I'm thinking not. God's advanced health principles were not grievous, were not defiling, specified no drugs, required no indignities. They are simple and serene and beautiful. Back to Gerson. This is what he said. Eat and drink as much as you can, even during the night when awake. He's talking to his patients. This clearly contradicts natural law health principles. That's intemperance and the definition of gluttony. The road to health does not require excess. The Gerson therapy does not fit Eden's health principles. And again, I remind you that I started out in my research thinking that Dr. Gerson really was the gold standard for treating cancer. The more I read, the more I realized how very wrong I was. Dr. Gerson's cancer regime did not pass any of these 7 tests. So how is it then that patients got better with this program? Because they did. We must acknowledge that it did work. But just because something in that grievous system worked doesn't mean that it was all necessary. Let me give you a Bible example. God told Captain Naaman to dip himself in the Jordan River how many times? 7 times to cure his leprosy. Would he improve his condition to dip 21 times? If he had, would that be faith or lack of faith? God specified what it would take for him to restore his health 7 times, just as he has specified what it would take for us to restore our health. The component that worked in the Gerson therapy was found in the realm of what he eliminated from the patient's diet. Most dairy products he eliminated, but not all. He eliminated baking soda, salt, oils, fats, refined sugar, refined flour, canned foods, preserves, pickles, tobacco, sharp spices, tea, chocolate, alcohol, cream, ice cream, cake, and solid meat. But I believe that most of the other components only hindered healing. The elimination of solid meat alone may have reversed the cancers. Now, the following quote from Ellen White is why I say this. Here it is. Cancer, tumors, and all inflammatory diseases are largely caused by meat eating. From the light which God has given me, the prevalence of cancers and tumors is due to gross living on dead flesh. And this revelation fits Eden principles. Man was assigned to care for the animals, but we messed with the natural order of things when we started killing and eating them instead of caring for them. It is an ongoing, continuous horror story, and those that continue to eat meat continue to pay the price. All right, that's it for the Gerson. Moving on to Dr. McDougall. This is very short. Everything else is shorter than that one by far. Dr. McDougall offers a 12-day online educational program. It features a low-fat, starch-based vegan diet. Ooh, starch-based. Interesting. Everybody else is saying, no, no starch. The diet rejects all animal products, as well as cooking oils, processed food, refined sugar, salt, and supplements. He does not advertise juicing either. Exercise is advocated, as is sunlight. Now, that's a very simple program. Did anyone get cured from that? Well, let's hear from him. In the video, Forks Over Knives, in the context of his program, he talks about a patient who reversed her cancer, and then he says other people get over breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer. He says there are people who have had metastatic prostate cancer all over their bodies who have gone through what we call spontaneous remission. In other words, they've been cured. They've been cured just on the simple thing that he did. His program was so simple, and it worked. No side effects. That China study, you've heard of that before. There's the book. The China study described a monumental survey of diet and death rates from cancer in more than 2,400 Chinese counties. It was the largest and most comprehensive study ever undertaken of the relationship between diet and the risk of developing disease, including cancer. They found nearly 9,000 statistically significant correlations between diet and disease. One message through them all: plant-based diet is always associated with lower mortality of certain cancers, stroke, and heart disease. Whole plant-based diets were beneficial to health, while animal-based foods were not. Continuing with the China study, the author of the China study took a group of rats, injected them with increasing doses of a known carcinogen, aflatoxin. He then switched their diets back and forth between 5% and 20% casein. Casein is the main protein in dairy products. Doing so in 3-week intervals. The results were astonishing. Whenever the rats were fed 20% protein, early liver tumor growth exploded. But when the same rats were given 5% protein, tumor growth actually went down. I think they eventually got it down to that 20% casein down to 11%. At 11%, that was the cutoff. So plant protein tested in the same way did not produce cancer growth, even at higher levels of intake. Dr. Campbell said this was yet another result demonstrating that a low protein diet could override the cancer-causing effect of a very powerful carcinogenic aflatoxin. Interesting. So he conjectures here. He says, is it possible that chemical carcinogens in general do not cause cancer unless the nutritional conditions are right? Is it possible that for much of our lives, we are being exposed to small amounts of cancer-causing chemicals, but cancer does not occur unless we consume foods that promote and nurture tumor development? Can we control cancer through nutrition? Ooh, I have an application for this. If this is true, it might be the answer for those things that are out of our control, like chemtrails. And it certainly seems to fit God's healthcare promise. We do have control over our diet, though. Remember, if you keep my statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon you. The worldwide deliberate poisoning of mankind is overwhelming and tends to lead to a sense of hopelessness. What if it's not hopeless? What if, in simply obeying the laws of health in an official partnership with God, that God really does keep his promise and keeps us from getting sick, even in the midst of the worldwide poisoning of mankind? God has made a promise with us. Did God ever tell us that there would come a time when his healing promises would be ineffective? Is Satan's power to destroy greater than God's power to save? Be still and know that I am God. We must, through faith, strive to obey the laws of health. We need to join in partnership with him. We need to claim his promises. Okay, African tribes. This section is in the sun cure, but it really needed to be in this presentation as well. So it's important that we have a little bit of redundancy anyway, because it's hard to remember all these things. All right. This African tribe lived outside with full body exposure to sunlight all day, every day, their entire lives. Would you expect them to have fabulous vitality or be filled with cancer? One of these things is true. All right, here's the story. Some of the unclothed tribes of Central Africa, who live on a diet similar to that of the gorilla, and with their naked bodies bathed in the glowing rays of a tropical sun, are free from parasitic diseases and are possessed of a resistance so high that cancer, one of the scourges of all civilized lands, is unknown. And such a thing as appendicitis was never heard of. Their dark skins have a luster and silken feel that no cosmetic could improve, and the tide of life runs so high in their lithe bodies that there is no end to their endurances. That's a pattern. The men run with government dispatches 60 miles a day, day after day, for hundreds of miles. Now, I told you that story to tell you this one. Another African tribe also lived and worked outside with full body exposure to sunlight all day, every day, their entire lives without cancer. But this tribe made one tiny, seemingly insignificant change in the name of fashion and pride, which resulted in cancer. Here's the story. This is Dr. John Ott speaking. He says, at a dinner given prior to one of my lectures, I sat next to the daughter of the late Dr. Albert Schweitzer. Our conversation dwelt mostly on her experiences as assistant to her father at Lambarene on the west coast of Africa. I asked her about the rate of cancer of the people in that area, and she replied that when her father had first started the hospital, they found no cancer at all, but that now it was a problem. So I asked if the people living there had started installing glass windows and electric light in their otherwise simple surroundings, and she said they had not. Then I half jokingly asked her if any of the natives wore sunglasses. She looked startled and then told me that the natives paddling their dugout canoes up and down the river in front of the hospital often wore no more than a loincloth and sunglasses. And indeed, some wore only the sunglasses. She further explained that sunglasses represented a status symbol of the civilization and education and had a higher bartering value than beads and other such trinkets. God gave sunlight a vital role to play through our eyes. A simple pair of sunglasses filtered and distorted natural sunlight to the eyes long enough to cause cancer. Again, we cannot mess with Eden's natural order of things and still expect health and healing. Sunglasses are yet another thing that man's medical science got wrong. They were billed as protective, yet the opposite was true. Eden was to be our model for health and healing, not pharmakeia. We need to study it. All right, Dr. John Ott's cancer stories, little micro stories here. Skin cancer cleared by light. He says, one of my friends had been troubled with skin cancer and on several occasions had undergone minor surgery. He was again having considerable difficulty and his physician had recommended further surgery. Of course he did. However, on his own initiative, he decided to try the same ultraviolet ocular therapy, eye therapy, that he was giving his wife for her eye condition. And immediately, his skin cancers began to disappear. And within a matter of 4 or 5 months, his skin appeared perfectly normal without surgery or other treatment. Now, here is that ocular therapy Dr. Ott was talking about. 3 things. Spend as much time as possible outdoors. Full body exposure if possible. Avoid wearing any eyewear and looking through glass. Avoid artificial light sources, including TV and now computer screens, etc. It was simple. Lung cancer and sunglasses. This is John Ott again. Personal friend of mine told me of an acquaintance of his, a man in his early 70s who had just been diagnosed as having terminal lung cancer. This man lived in the Southwest and wore sunglasses most of the time. My friend sent him a copy of My Ivory Cellar. That was Dr. John Ott's book, one of 3, and a set of the instruction sheets that had been given to the 15 patients in New York City for living out of doors as much as possible and avoiding artificial light. The elderly lung cancer patient agreed to follow the instructions. The tumor completely disappeared, and he lived for approximately 8 years before dying of a heart complication. This is the chain of evidence. Another one, prostate cancer versus pink eyeglasses. Beware of pink filters or lights or pink bedrooms. All right, Dr. John Ott. An elderly acquaintance had been diagnosed with prostate cancer and surgery had been recommended. I found that he had for many years been wearing eyeglasses with a light pink tint, and I was able to persuade him to stop wearing and get some new full spectrum clear UV transmitting spectacles. I advised him to cut down as much as possible on watching TV to spend more time outdoors, or at least on an open screened porch. Before I move on, thesuncure.com, that's my website. Click on one of those tabs up there about resources having to do with light, and you'll find the one person that I know of in this world that creates UV transmitting glasses. Now, that's the source. All right. He has now gone for 3 years without surgery, and the problem has apparently disappeared. Isn't that magnificent? Now, there are several other stories available concerning pink and light in our health, just not enough time to present them here. Now, you might remember this little clip. Leukemia, this is about leukemia. Leukemia is a blood cancer. This story is another example of cancer developing because the light entering the eyes has been filtered and distorted. Basically, leukemia outbreak traced back to green curtains and warm or pink fluorescent lighting. Here's the clip. Let's hope this works.
Here's the St. John Brebeuf School in Niles, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago.
Not working.
In 1963, the Communicable Disease Center of the U.S. Public Health Service in Atlanta reported an unusually high rate of leukemia with the children attending this.
Back up. Basically, they had green curtains and they caused leukemia. There's a story behind it, but it was a lot of messed up words. Basically, that's it. The lighting was filtered through the eyes, messing with the natural order thing, causing leukemia. And when the two teachers that closed, they were new teachers, they closed off those windows in that school with green curtains all the time, closed, and used pink fluorescent lights all the time. So they never had natural light indoors. And that caused the leukemia to happen. The researchers came in, tried to figure it out. But when those teachers left and moved on to another school, the problem went away. And they also changed the bulbs from warm pink to cool full spectrum bulbs and opened the curtains again. Sorry, that should have worked. All right. Terminal cancer story number 1. This is still Dr. Ott's experience. He says, a Scandinavian doctor discovered that she had terminal cancer. She was a great nutritionist and thought that fresh fish from the sea would be helpful because they contain all the minerals from the sea and would be freest of artificial preservatives and other additives. Well, not anymore. She gave up her practice and went to a small town in northern Norway where living was very simple, and went out with the fishermen every day to help catch her fish. Remember, she had terminal cancer. She became a case of complete remission, but when she prescribed fresh fish in the diets of her patients back in the city, it didn't work. Well, the reason it didn't work for her patients is because it wasn't the fish that cured her. It was simply the outdoors, sunlight and fresh air and exercise, and the healing negative ions from the moving waters of the ocean. Chain of evidence. It's a small story. Chain of evidence. Terminal cancer patient number 2. The cover story of Time magazine about 10 or 15 years ago mentioned such a complete remission. A man, upon being told he had terminal cancer, immediately stopped going to his office and started reading in a rocking chair on an open back porch and also working in his rose garden. The cancer disappeared, and he became a medically proven case of complete remission. Oh, there's all sorts of things I could say about that, but it's a long presentation, so I'm cut it short. Dr. Muhlenberg's cancer patient. Dr. Muhlenberg was a contemporary of Dr. Ott. Now, the next 3 accounts of hopeless cancer patients are taken from a letter written by Dr. Hans C. Muhlenberg of the Netherlands to Dr. John Ott in 1978. And they are recorded in the book Light, Radiation, and You, 1982. This is Muhlenberg telling about his patient. Your letter set me thinking about the lives of my patients, and some things emerged which I did not expect. My very first patient was a boy with astrocytoma. That's brain tumor. My very first Laetrile patient, that is. Laetrile was a controversial, dangerous sort of synthetic supplement. He was inoperable, and they took a piece of the tumor, localized in the small brains, out and gave him some radiation. This boy is a nearly pure Laetrile patient, as he was not holding his diet very well and did not take his vitamins. He is now 18 and quite healthy. Now, this is a schoolboy who has to be on a bike 4 times a day and who is doing outdoor sports like rowing. Okay, more chain of evidence. Next patient, inoperable ovarian cancer. My second Laetrile patient was a woman with a recurrence of an ovarial carcinoma, big as a fist. She was inoperable and got some endoxin, but she was in much pain and was looking very bad indeed. Endoxin was pain reliever. We are 5 years later now, and she is so good that the Cancer Institute is dying to open her up, but she refuses. Good for her. Now, this woman is doing long stretches on her bike every day. She is an outdoor type, and she lives in a rather rural country with wide open skies. Terminal lung cancer patient number 3. Another patient is a man who lives in the same area. He came last year to my office dying from lung cancer. He was blue in the face and gasping for breath, and he had to be helped in by his wife and his brother. After half a year, he was in much better conditions. And this is important for you. This man is working outdoors in his small garden where he cultivates vegetables most of the day. Lately, the specialist became irritated that the man had not died yet and suddenly gave him huge doses of chemotherapy. And since then, he is deteriorating. You know, it wasn't long ago, before pre-COVID, I would not have believed that. Now, we saw what was really at play there during COVID. This is very easy to believe. By the way, this was Dr. Muhlenberg talking about another doctor. This wasn't my opinion. The following is the conclusion of Dr. Muhlenberg's letter to Dr. Ott. He says, the last 2 patients were given diet, vitamins, minerals, and bromelain with Laetrile. On the other hand, another patient with a big stomach tumor who, according to the hospital, had 2 weeks to live, lived for 10 months, but he never went outdoors at all. And a colleague of mine has given Laetrile to a lot of patients about half a year ago, and they all died. He lives in the northern part of the country where people often are strictly religious and cover themselves up in black clothes. All these things are no proof, of course, he says, but it certainly is a strange thing that the first 3 successful cases that came to my mind all were outdoor cases, so to speak, and that the unsuccessful cases, because I only mentioned 1, but there are a lot more of unsuccessful cases, hardly ever moved outdoors. And if they did so, it was by car behind glass. The 3 successful cases I wrote you about do not wear glasses. Isn't that interesting? All right, moving on. True North Health Center. This is modern. This is not history here. This is what they said. True North Health Center is now the largest facility in the world that specializes in medically supervised water-only fasting. Participants come to fast and detoxify, lose weight, and make diet and lifestyle changes while enjoying a health-promoting diet derived from whole natural foods. There are numerous case studies and videos telling the amazing recovery stories of their water-only fasters. They have had a number of patients dealing with lymphoma or lymphatic cancer. We're going to look at the published summarized story of just one of those patients. This is the patient. They gave her name and her family before coming to True North, Ivana. This is the patient after the 21-day water fast. That's it. Here's the official thing. Here's the official report. Stage 3 lymphoma. Here we present a 3-year follow-up, 3 years afterwards, of a case that was originally published in BMJ Case Reports in December 2015. Briefly, a 42-year-old woman presented to her primary physician with a palpable mass in her right inguinal region and was subsequently diagnosed with stage 3A grade 1 follicular lymphoma, FL. In November 2014, the patient arrived at True North Health Center and elected to undergo a 21-day medically supervised water-only fast, after which she refed on an exclusively whole plant food diet, free of added salt, oil, and sugar, including refined carbohydrates for 10 days. Over the course of treatment, her enlarged lymph nodes became impalpable, couldn't feel them anymore. Follow-up CT scans confirmed reduction in size. She did not undergo standard cancer treatment. She maintained the SOS-free diet and was symptom-free at 3-month and 6-month follow-up visits. Now, Yvonne tells her story in detail on the True North website. All right, now, step back here and let's look at this. Contrast her exceedingly simple 21-day fast cancer regime to Dr. Gerson's complicated, elaborate 2-year cancer regime. All she did was just stop eating for 3 weeks. Simple, easy, effortless, automatic detox and healing. It fits God's natural law of healthcare. Can it get any simpler than that? Again, God's system of healing is automatic and healing. She detoxified by fasting. Now wait till you see Eden Part 3B. It contains the most magnificent fasting story you will ever hear. You will believe. And yes, there are numerous quotes from Ellen White recommending fasting, which we're not going to give today. Mei Chung's cancer story. This is my favorite. Just so you know, Mei Chung was not a doctor. Mei Chung from 3ABN had amazing success when caring for end-stage cancer patients in her own facility or home. The following is just a tiny little paragraph summarizing the story. Mei used no supplements. These were end-stage cancer patients that doctors referred her to. Mei used no supplements, no concentrates, no juicing. She didn't even use man-made treatments. No treatments. She simply followed the simple, basic lifestyle counsels we have been given in the priority in which God gave it. She had potential candidates promise first that, get this, that they would follow God's methods completely and forgive those who hurt them before she would agree to take them on. That we have to do as well. 2 different doctors sent her these dying cancer patients. She followed the counsel that included a wide variety of simple foods. Wide variety, wide variety, wide variety. Well-cooked grains, only 2 meals a day, walking in the sunlight and fresh air, etc. That was it. It was so simple. One patient came in with throat cancer so bad that he could not even swallow. Well, how do you heal that if you can't give him food? So Mei Chung stayed up late that night to petition God to show her what to do. And God answered her. The answer was this: have him chew cabbage and spit. Chew cabbage and spit. Chew cabbage and spit. Within a day, he could swallow again. Her patients were healed rapidly with such simple lifestyle methods and intercessory prayer. This is huge. Quote from Ellen White: when you neglect to offer prayer for the sick, you deprive them of great blessings. For angels of God are waiting to minister to these souls in response to your petitions. Medical Ministry, page 195. Now, why don't we hear things like this preached from our pulpits in these end times? We don't hear it from our doctors. We don't hear it from nurses. Who do we hear this from? All right, analysis of the cancer stories, right? Got them all together. Here it is, one simple chart. Dr. Gerson, diet? No, not really. Just what he canceled. He had 13 juices. He found that supplements caused cancer. Oh, I have this all written down. I'll just follow my script. The most common denominators were whole plant food, sunlight and fresh air, and exercise. Proper diet, sunlight, air, and exercise. Those were the common denominators. Apparently, juicing is not required for treating cancer. Sunglasses, eyeglasses, contact lenses are factors which need to be considered when treating cancer. Number 4, analysis. Fasting was the easiest and apparently one of the most effective treatments for cancer. Number 5, God has implanted multiple backup systems which end with the same kind of results. Number 6, Mei Chung's regime was the most balanced, the most effective, because it was especially blessed by God. Mei asked God what to do, and God answered. Notice that God did not tell her to start a juicing program or take supplements or even do any man-made therapies, not even hydrotherapy. What God required was not grievous. Her regime was based on faith. The requirement to forgive removed possible roadblocks to their healing. Oh, number 10, the spiritual aspect was the most important thing that could be done for treating cancer, for it is always God who does the healing, no matter which of his healing agencies he chooses to use. Notice that no one used natural beauty or trees to fight cancer. Just think of the results we could have if we did start including these in our treatment of cancer. What if treating cancer naturally really is far simpler, easier, cheaper, faster, and safer than Dr. Gerson's untitrated traditions? Oh, I'm sorry. We have just entered into the section of application for us right now. I'm going to read that again. What if treating cancer naturally really is far simpler, easier, cheaper, faster, and safer than Dr. Gerson's untitrated medical conditions? Yeah, it's obvious he never titrated his stuff. What if it has always been easier, always been simpler? What if it's always been that way? Just imagine caring for the sick in such a way that does not exhaust our time, our budgets, our energies. Imagine cancer patients who have neither helper nor energy trying to do the Gerson therapy. Does God require such grievous labor? God has made healthcare simple and automatic. The majority of those cancer recovery stories involve no man-made therapies. No hydrotherapy, no hyperbaric oxygen chambers, no colonics, no coffee enemas, no saunas, no light therapy, no light baths, no ultraviolet blood irradiation, no massage therapy, no essential oils, no charcoal, no poultices, no frequency machines, no alkalized water, no juicing, no supplements, no defilement, no indignities. That has got to mean something, folks. What if cancer remains difficult to treat even for natural health practitioners? Think New Start. Simply because, number 1, sunglasses and eyewear are overlooked as a cause of cancer. Number 2, nature is not fully embraced or emphasized the way God emphasizes it. Number 3, fear is not changed to surrender. Number 4, sin is not confessed or given up. Number 5, forgiveness is not offered to others who have hurt that patient. Number 6, wisdom is not requested or waited for. I have to stop there for a moment. We think we know everything there is to know. I mean, the whole New Start thing, it's those. We do those. If it doesn't work, well, I guess we're out of luck. Guess God just meant them to die. No, we ask God what is available within our reach, and you wait for his response and you obey it. Cabbage, that wasn't known in our health message. God gave specific wisdom for a specific person because another specific person requested it of God in faith and waited for the answer. Number 7, a partnership with God is not made. Cancer remains difficult to treat, even for natural healthcare practitioners, simply because, number 8, faith is bestowed more on man's concentrates, supplements, therapies, medical theories, and medical traditions than in God and his specified healing agencies of nature, his revealed will. We human beings, we have within us an almost hardwired notion that we must treat patients under our care in order to earn our pay or reputation. What if we recalibrate that notion to be in harmony with Enon's automatic healing principles? What would that look like if we didn't treat them? We change the paradigm from the emphasis of treating patients to the emphasis of caring for patients as we let nature do most of the work of treating our patients. This paradigm shift would allow non-medical medical missionaries, that's laymen, folks, that's us, would allow non-medical medical missionaries to care for patients without worry of lawsuits or being shut down by the medical mafias or Babylon's drug cartels. Because legally, non-medical professionals treating the sick can be a risky business that can open a world of hurt on us, especially if the patient gets worse or dies. Yes, I've heard a horror story about that, a real story. They were just using hydrotherapy and the patient died. The caregiver went to prison. That's why we have to stay off the radar if we try it. The medical mafias can accuse us of practicing medicine without a license, especially if we charge for it, especially if we advertise it, especially if we verbally use the word cancer. And if you're successful at it, they're coming for you, man. You keep this off the radar. You have God send you patients. And these merchants of pharmakeia have certainly shown their willingness to persecute at minimum. We are sheep among wolves. Non-medical medical missionaries need not be dependent on treatments if they feel that doing treatments on the sick would place themselves at an unacceptable risk. God has shown us, fortunately, an even better way. We simply care for the invalid and demonstrate the better way as we lead the invalid into the healing agencies of nature and a trust in God. We show them what God's nature can really do for them. We do what Mei Chung did for her patients: a proper diet with a wide variety of food, exercise outdoors, forgiveness, and most importantly, intercessory prayer and faith, a partnership with God. Nothing wrong with treatments. We are counseled to use treatments. But if I had to choose between all of man's therapies combined or stepping out into God's automatic healthcare system, I would choose God's automatic healthcare system in a heartbeat. And the most important part of that healthcare system is the arrangement that God has with us. We're 2 slides away from the end. If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, not ours, and will give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. In such a time as this, we dare not neglect this vital, foundational healing principle. Last slide here. If we would simply step back from long-held medical traditions of both pharmakeia and natural healthcare, and from scratch, re-examine healthcare as God intended and specified verbally and demonstrated it, it will begin to dawn on us that God's healthcare system is freeing, it's liberating and empowering. Nature was supposed to do the most of the work of healing. It will also become plain that the simplicity of the gospel message is paired with the simplicity of the health message. Man is still trying to save himself spiritually by his own works, just as he is still trying to save himself physically by his own toxic medical works. Yet both are an impossibility. But God offers both salvation and healthcare free of charge, and both are simple and easy. He's already done the work for us. Yet both require compliance to the laws of God, and both require God's free grace to overcome the clamoring of our fallen natures. But we must ask him for that grace and surrender our wills to him unto death. Righteousness is by faith, and healing is by faith. Jesus is both our Savior and the great physician. The health message is truly the right arm of the gospel. And if we are to understand the laws that make up that right arm of the gospel, then we must go back to the very beginning, back to the very gates of Eden, and study for ourselves God's magnificent outdoor automatic health care system. All right, I'm done. Let me go back to the toolbar, stop the share. Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for the information, Brother John. Again, some really good lessons to take away from it, and exciting as always. Yeah, it just seems like, as we know, whenever you leave out God from the picture, you don't have a clear picture. You may have some good remedies, and you may have some, again, like New Age or just things that don't come from God, and the healing is not going to be complete. And we are now worried more about our spiritual and mental health, right? It's not all about how long we will live on this earth, but our spiritual health. Yeah.
I'm convinced that this is the paradigm shift that's coming, that's needed. We have to turn our emphasis back to God as the healer. You're right. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. And you were mentioning also some atheists, writers, and people that are not even Christian, but they know something that a lot of the times Christians ignore. You can obviously see what's missing there. They are attributing these healing benefits to the trees and to nature and everything. And hopefully one day a lot of these people will see that they will attribute all the wonderful things to God, because I think someone that explores nature and is a scientist will sooner or later realize that there's more to it than just trees and Mother Nature and all of that. So yeah. I just want to quickly encourage everyone to please type your questions if you have any. We have about 10 minutes to, sorry?
Or comments, I said.
Yes, or comments. Yeah. We want to hear from you. We have a little bit of time to answer your questions, so let us know if you have any questions about what we are discussing. And just a few points I want to mention. Brother John, you were talking about, of course, the Gerson therapy. And years ago, I was listening to like documentaries on the healing protocols and the stories of people's like cancer healing and everything, and I was really impressed. So I went and purchased the book, and I must admit I didn't read the whole book. So I read maybe a few things, and I saw that it was a bit strange that the salt was omitted, so they don't use salt. And now you're talking about it, and I was really surprised. I went and grabbed the book, and I'm thinking I need to find out whether what's happening, what this liver juices and everything, because I was under the impression, like I'm sure a lot of us would be, that they advocate for vegan, vegetarian lifestyle, right? I never realized that they do have this sunlight restrictions, water restrictions, and I'm reading here that raw liver juice has been part of the Gerson vegetable and fruit juice drinking procedure. Because when we hear about juicing, we don't think that that includes animal part juices, right?
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah. So eventually, apparently, they had to stay away from it because of I guess the contaminations and stuff. But yeah, they were using that, and the crude liver extract that was also used, which I found quite interesting. So I'm glad that you mentioned those things, because it's pretty dangerous, because we hear all these things that the doctors and all of these like health centers that promote a vegan vegetarian diet, but there's a lot of like deception, and it's quite messed up, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Get back to the writings, to our actual original health message, as well as our original pioneer doctrines. Well, this wasn't the only one of our pillars that has been hijacked. There are others in the Adventist Church, and it's kind of scary.
Yeah, we were talking to friends yesterday, and my husband as well, and I was saying that it seems like Satan has options for everyone. If you don't want the clean, or if you don't want like the obvious unhealthy stuff, he's got this message or the option of healthy mixed with a little bit of unhealthy. Or we know, I was listening to a podcast as well. I don't want to advertise, so I'm just going to say that they were recommending lots of good natural remedies, but also urine treatment. And I thought, wow, there are Adventists, there are Christians watching this that may actually think that something that is supposed to be a waste product, we can drink it and it can help. Have you heard of that?
Yes, I just erased it from this presentation before I gave it.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to offend people that I know do this.
Okay.
But I gave principles. I showed the fingerprints. This is the God's MO here, and it does not how you say require defiling ourselves.
Yes, you did say that. I mean, coffee enemas and all different kinds of enemas, is one of that. But I was actually surprised, not to pass judgment on anyone, but I was surprised about the urine treatment. I actually didn't realize that anyone does it until like doctors. I realized doctors are recommending part of a really good looking protocol that looks like a detoxifying protocol. But and I think one thing to remember is that those things can work because there are other agencies working through these remedies, right?
Well, the person that I talked to about it, that person believes that it helped that person. I'm not going to tell you whether male or female. But the thing is, just because it works or appears to work doesn't mean there's not a price to pay down the line.
Yes.
There's always a price when you defile yourself and go against the natural order of things.
Mm-hmm. And as you were speaking, I was thinking there are people also claim benefit in encapsulating or making smoothies out of a placenta. And I believe
that's cannibalism.
that's what I think as well. And I believe a lot of the times it's not that helps, that one part of your diet that helps. It's, I think, despite what you're doing, you are healthy. Not because of that. Sometimes, you can have a good vegetarian diet and everything, and you can encapsulate or, make a smoothie, sorry to, gross people out. But I think in spite of that, you may still preserve health. And Ellen White mentions as well, so what if health was preserved for a few more years? you know, would you still go to the god of Ekron and to preserve your health? Yeah.
Good point. Good point. Satan can do miracles too.
Yeah.
And what if through using these defiling things, Satan's doing that? I'm not big on believing that, but what if there's a possibility of it? Yeah. So yeah, just because it works. How many of the 10 last plagues, not last plagues, Pharaoh's plagues, how many of those were able to be counterfeited? 1, 2, 3 of them, something like that. I think it was the first 3 or something.
Yeah, that's true. I think it was the snake they were able to counterfeit that. I think the blood, water turning into blood. Yeah, I think that was, yeah, exactly. To a certain point, it is allowed to, to be counterfeited, like you said. But yeah, and I found it interesting as well, Mei Chang's patient story. I have found as well, it is important, again, like you mentioned, to remember that a lot of the times as medical missionaries, we may not have the answers, but when we pray, we get some interesting answers sometimes that don't involve, as you said, juicing maybe even, or complex, I don't know, supplementations and all of that. So good things to remember.
No, we're discovering this principle. I believe this. You know how you say that the Bible says, Jesus said, you can't put new wine in old wineskins? Well, some of our lifestyle centers are financially based in juicing and supplements and their therapies. And if they just sit back and let God do most of the healing, well, they're not going to get paid. And what are we going to charge if we're not doing any work? So they continue this. So if we're going to have, say, a lifestyle center or a sanitarium in this day and age, it has to be based completely on what God has emphasized. And we can't, it's not about making money. It's about the entering wedge to the gospel and saving as many people as we can. Going to be a completely different paradigm, and it might just have to be individual families treating other individual families.
That's right. Our aim should be to teach people how to look after themselves, not to depend on something they need to keep buying, right? Mixtures, some type of mixtures that they don't know how to put together or create the same stuff. So the question we have, Brother John, is what do you think about juicing? Because Dr. John Clark is actually almost against it for, scientific reasons. But what are your ideas about that?
Actually, I saw John Clark's website and I saw that, I said, oh, I almost put his statement in there, but I just didn't have enough room. What I think about juicing is in 3B in detail. I cover it with science, with history, with Ellen White, and actually only that science which was in harmony with God's word. No, I side by side, it's a whole chain of evidence. If I try now, I'm just gonna ruin it for you.
Awesome. Yeah. Well,
yeah, I mean, you kind of know right now. I totally, said it's free. We don't have to do that. It's not that they're doing it wrong. It's that you don't have to do that. God's made it so much simpler. But if they've already started making money off of it, it's going to be really hard to change. So that's why we need to start from scratch. Health programs not based on those things, because I don't think they're going to change.
Yes, and you said it is expensive as well, which is a really good point. It is quite expensive, especially 13 juices a day. That is a bit crazy. Yeah. And okay, so the juicing part. So what about the fats, like plant-based even? I know one of the things that Gerson Therapy was recommending, and one of the more innocent looking things, was flaxseed oil. But what is your opinion, or anything extracted or oil or fat?
I've not thoroughly researched that. I know that fried oils are a problem. I know that if we depend upon oils, that can cause problems. I know that the McDougall program recommended SOS, no sugar, oils, or salt. Other people as well. If I believe that we can get all the oils we need from whole avocados, whole olives, whole seeds, whole nuts, plenty of oil. When I eat a handful of oil, it comes out through my pores. I'm getting plenty of oil. A handful of nuts. I did say a handful of nuts, didn't I? Yeah.
True.
But I'm not a warrior on that part because I'm not really studying into that, but it just makes sense. And olive oil was healing in the Bible, right? There are ways to use it that's healing.
Yeah, that's right. And also I've heard that olive oil in the Bible was very different from what we have now. It wasn't clear. It basically, you could see that it was like a cloudy liquid with sticky almost. So it was very close to the whole food product, and it was probably manually pressed, whereas now we don't have any residue underneath, right? No matter how long you leave the bottle sitting there.
That makes sense, doesn't it? They had way back then, they didn't have the ability to process the life out of this stuff like we do now. So who knows what they've been doing to modern day stuff? They just want to make money. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I did not know that.
Yeah, it is good to know. And one of the things, just the last point I will mention, Brother John, is that even we're talking about programs that are not necessarily biblical. Even Dr. McDougall, I was listening to him one day, and he went to all you can eat, I think like a cafe or something, and he was piling up all this food on his plate, and he was saying that you don't have to worry about overeating as long as you're not using oil and salt. I guess you can like fill up your stomach. And again, I just thought, if it's not biblical, if it's not inspired, you just have to be so careful, because here he is almost promoting overeating. So
I addressed that in 3B. Clearly I addressed that. I mean, in a whole, yes, that's addressed.
That's right. Okay. So, well, that's it for today, I guess. We don't have time to address any more points or any more questions. We do want to thank you very much, Brother John, for your time. And again, we want to encourage everyone to join us next time, because it seems like you have more information that we would definitely need to hear. So we want to thank you again. God bless. And could you please pray for us to close?
Lord Father, come to you, thanking you for your magnificent outdoor healing agency, sir, and your willingness to bless them with supernatural results. We ask for your continued guidance for all of us that are paying attention and are awake on this topic. We see your pattern, where it's going, and we gratefully thank you that we get to be a part of that, sir. So thank you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. See you next time, Brother John.
Okay, have a good night.
Bye. Okay. We want to thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It is a blessing for us as well, and hope that you were blessed by today's presentation. And we want to remind you, next presentation will be Eden Part 3B. We encourage you to join us again, and that will be our last presentation with Brother John. And an exciting announcement as well is that we will start from 23rd of February. Every Friday, 7 p.m., we will have Daniel and Revelation seminars. And we want to ask everyone, if you want to join, if you want to invite others as well. This provides a deeper understanding of the prophecies, so history of the past, what is happening in the present, and also what to expect in the future, and how to interpret the prophecies and how to prepare for what's coming. So the program, the series are developed not only for Adventists, but all Christians and also people that are not Christian, but are wondering what's happening around them, because we know that there are a lot of things that are indicating that something serious is about to happen. So for that, again, we encourage you to follow us on YouTube and Rumble, but we will post more Facebook and Signal pages as well. So just look out for those and make sure you are following us on those different platforms. Also, starting from 17th of March, and I will advertise more as we come closer to the date, we will have series called The Fashionable Christian, which addresses appearance side of things of the gospel work as Christians, and the health and moral principles connected to how we dress, how we conduct ourselves, and all of that, which I think, again, just one of those forgotten but very important principles to discuss. So again, stay in touch, send your questions to us at takechargeofyourhealth101@gmail.com. And we are looking forward to seeing you next time. So next Sunday, 10 a.m. again, Queensland, Australia time. God bless you and see you next time. Bye for now.